Here we go. YouTube finally got its act together. They implemented new stuff. I wish they would focus on making the platform actually better. Instead, they put in security checks, and now I have to fill out all my passwords and everything every time I want to live stream. Awesome. But summer is here. You want to know how I know? Because every time summer comes around, our sales drop through the floor. So between this Saturday, so yesterday, and Saturday before, sales dropped by 36%, which is always super stressful because you still got to pay all the bills. And right now we have everything in stock. Well, not everything. We have everything but 7 items in stock, including pink flamingo, all the rare stuff. I always find it, there needs to be a meme of like the, like the dude looking at the girl or his girlfriend's looking at him or whatever. It's basically something to do with summer and everything being in stock, and then people asking all year long, like, when's it going to be in stock? And then when it is in stock, they don't want it. So it's a weird thing we go through every year. It's like, oh, why? We have everything now. And I realize if people aren't buying, we get more. But just in general, catching up from the winter seasons happens in summer, and then sales just go real low. It gets real scary. It's actually the only time I ever lost money. Like the second year I was open, we lost money in July. We're not even to July yet. Summer's come early, but don't worry, we're much better prepared this year, or well, these years, I guess. If you're worried about the heat, we do ship plants in the heat, and we have reflective liners just like we do in the winter. So, and if they get stuck and boil to death, we'll reship them. So, the risk is on us, not on you. So if you want to buy plants, do it. All right. What are we doing today? First and foremost, I'd say these cashews are amazing, and everyone needs to know about them. They are hoodies, a pinch of everything seasoned cashews from Costco. They are ridiculously too good. They're addicting, and that's my public service announcement. If you have a Costco and those nuts are there, you should buy them. They're expensive, but they're amazing. All right. Probably less to do with both wanting it and more with the heat and vacation spending. It could be. I've heard every excuse under the sun, like, I'm going to go on a vacation in 3 months. I'm not buying fish right now. Like when we're in the retail store, like I get it. I was outside. That's why my face looks a little more red than normal, and my arms are definitely more red. Got a sunburn, right? No, I get it. It just doesn't make it any less stressful. That's the thing. I got auto feeders. Can you talk about setting it up? I think I'm getting them down now. They're pretty basic. I mean, you set the time you want. So that's the first thing, is you obviously set the time of like what time it is in the day. Then you would set the time at which you want the drum to rotate and let food out. And you can have that rotate once, twice, or 3 times. Usually you're just going to do once. I'm not a big fan. I mean, you'd have to have a big tank to really warrant dumping 3 things of food in there. And then at that point, this drum's not even that big. So if it was only a couple of days, you could do that. And then you can set it up to 4 times. So you could, morning, noon, night, and extra night, 4th meal, right? You could do all of that. But otherwise, it's pretty easy system. It's very similar. If you've never programmed a feeder before, you're gonna have to read the instructions. But if you haven't, you pretty much start going like, well, if I just hold this button, like the settings button, oh, the time is flashing, and then okay, and then I hit that and it moves on to the next thing. I hit that and moves on to the next thing, and you just keep rotating through the setting you want to change. But if you've never done that process before, I can see how that would be confusing. Get in the box. There we go. We've been selling a lot of feeders, so we originally brought in 1,400, and now our forecasting software says to bring 11,000 of them in, which I don't have that kind of money. A lockout feature would be great on the feeders. My son discovered the feed button on the bottom and emptied the drum into the 30-gallon in a couple of minutes. I can see how that's a problem. I don't think we'll ever be able to implement that, though. That'll probably take, I could check, but I'm not sure if they're going to rewrite programming based on that. Like, I don't know the level it would have to go down. And it's not that hard of a fix if you're still a developer, but I know how it would work. If I had custom developed something and they're like, here's a project scope, oh, it's done? Oh, to get back into that, it's going to cost X. And they're probably just going to go, no, we're not going to do that. So, yeah. But I think you're going to have that problem with like most feeders, so oof. We did play ping pong last night. There's quite a few ping pong balls, I guess, over here. And Bob did not go undefeated. I beat him probably 50% of the time. So, ha! A thumbtack on the feed button. There you go. That's the old school way of don't touch that. I heard you shouldn't use a heater in the brine shrimp hatchery. Does anyone have any advice to keep the hatchery around 80 degrees without a heater? I don't know who's saying don't use one. You can. I mean, I don't, but I would never say don't do it. I heat the room, and but you can put a heater in there. Like right now, summer's here, so it's actually getting like a little too warm in my fish room. I'm actually a little bit worried about it. So I'm gonna have to start figuring out. Like, it's not quite to the point of turning AC on. There's always that awkward zone for fish rooms and the store where it's definitely warm. Like, it might be 80 today or something, right? Like, warm, not hot, but warm. But with the skylights and all the tanks and everything there, it just kind of gets really hot where it's like, oof, it's 90 in here. Like, that's pretty warm. Now, just because it's 90 doesn't mean the water temp's going to be 90, but it's warm. But if I turn the AC on, then that AC is going to kick in, and you know, maybe I could set it to 85 so it cools below 85 or something, but you're going to get some tanks where the AC is blowing directly on it, and then that's going to cause those tanks to go down maybe too far. And so you kind of need it to be like really hot to turn AC on in a fish room. And the store. The store, we've got the fans, and it's venting and doing all that, and it's more manageable, but yeah, it's a delicate balance. So the other thing too is if it got too cold, then my brine shrimp's lagging behind. There's all those kinds of problems that come with that. So, but right now, if you're in, well, I was going to say in the Northwest, but the United States is pretty warm right now, so you shouldn't have to battle that too much. As long as it's above about 72, you'll hatch out brine shrimp, and then it just takes longer. But I'm kind of, my brine shrimp hatcheries, for some reason, I just don't want to have two going at a time. And to get brine shrimp the best hatch every day, I should be letting them go about 36 to 40, well, yeah, like 36-ish hours. The problem is I never get to feed the same day. I don't get a schedule that's like every morning at 10 a.m. I'm going to go feed. Like, it's always something different for me every day. Like, oh, today, like, I can't even set up my room book. It's the same problem. Like, oh, I have a meeting. Oh, I have the live stream. So you try to set it at a different time. Oh, I have meetings then. Oh, I try to do it then. So short of me doing it, like, I do it at 2 o'clock in the morning every day. But even sometimes I have, like, the developers for the website, I have meetings at 2 a.m. sometimes with them. But yeah. So that's why I need to almost like stagger them, get two going, and because I can't get the perfect schedule going. And so sometimes I go a little long, sometimes I feed short. And yeah, I'm just giving up some unhatched brine shrimp eggs when I go short, but I think it's worth it for the peace of mind and the time. So is it ideal for fish to breed at a lower temp? No. I don't think that's, I think that's a generalization that you couldn't. Like, for instance, Robert was mentioning a rare fish that he had found, and I'd kept them before, the Soda Lake cichlids. Their minimum temperature they're kept at is 105 degrees. That's not even like breeding temp. It goes up from there. But, in general, I think stable temperatures and, not having to rely on equipment, keeping it cheap, those things. So that's why I don't use a lot of heaters. I measure success by that. Like, cool, they're breeding my fish room, great. Whether they're doing it at 72 or 82 degrees doesn't really matter to me. I'm not a guy that's like, oh, well, at 82 I got 27 fry, at 72 I got 24 fry, and at 78 I got 90 fry. Like, any of those amounts is perfectly fine for me because I don't have to make my living off of it or anything like that. I do it for enjoyment. So, and 24, 27, all of that is equally as fun as a bunch more. All right. We do have a lot of the speakers lined up. If you guys are members, then you may have seen a community post, but not everyone gets to see that. So I'm going to go over that. Oh, I got to set it up. There's always something that like gets lost in translation. Let's see if I can set this up kind of on the fly here. This is the best YouTube, by the way, when you set things up. So let's see. We'll go to a website. Oh, it's just broken. Let me find it real quick here. My apologies in advance. See if I can find it. Not show off something terrible. It's right here, but why is it not updated? Why is it? No, wait, right here. There we go. Whew, did it. I have to, it's annoying. I have to set that up every time before I go live if I'm going to use it. And it doesn't remember the setting, even though it's the same window every time and all of that. It's unfortunate. Yes, hit that like button. Do it. Do I use OBS? I use Streamlabs, which is built on OBS, yeah. All right, now let me get the window up so I can actually show you guys. But now on the website, there is a club tab. The Aquariumcoop Club we've been talking about the last few weeks. And this is obviously going to build out. So far, all we have is events, right? If you click on events, you can start seeing the talks that are lined up. So if you're not a member yet, here's where you can come and peruse and see like what's coming up, what are they doing. Now, not everything's fully built out. You know, like some have descriptions and, you know, it'll show you when and where, YouTube memberships, right? And all of that. Now, a lot of this stuff is not so much like, well, you could have just made a post about that. Yes, we could have. But we're building out bigger infrastructure. Like, what about events we're going to do around the world where, hey, it's a meet and greet. This is the same place, same calendar system. You're going to come and see. So if I was doing an event August 5th at my store, that would be right here, right? And so you can see we've got some events lined up. It's only till November 20th now. We're still booking tickets for like maybe the UK and that kind of stuff. So we're looking at an event in Washington, and there's California. Like we still have to, we're trying to get word back from venues and that kind of stuff. We've had meetings with other event organizers and stuff like that. So we're definitely hard at work. But as far as just the online meetings go, we've got Gian, who's going to speak on breeding bettas, both show or fancy types, and then also wild bettas. And we've got Eric Thomas. He, I think right now, or is leaving in the next like week, is going to Peru and studying venoms on Corydoras even more so. But he does that at his lab. We have the full talk built out there yet. Yeah, so you can kind of read about, you know, endocrinology, you know, like all the, you know, all the stats. That's what I'm kind of trying to get out of this is like, let's qualify these people. So instead of like, well, Corey is a YouTuber, like that doesn't mean anything. Like I'm just a guy on the internet, right? But you're like, oh, you've got your PhD under this person at Berkeley and, you know, studying reproductive endocrinology and the influence of sex hormones on frog skin glands. Like that's definitely a NERM level, right? And he just so happens to love breeding catfish and then also studying the venoms on Corydoras. So now, the fear that I would have, having seen a lot of people talk, my fear is always when you get someone who knows the science, sometimes they're too big of a nerd and the talk's not personable and fun because they're not a hobbyist. Sometimes you get a researcher in and they don't actually keep aquariums, they just study stuff. And that's a really dry talk. Now, Eric, we won't have that problem. He's lively, he's a speaker coordinator for his club, and I've hung out with the guy before, and so he'll give a great presentation. So, you know, we're also qualifying to go, yeah, they know a lot, but are they going to be entertaining? Because we still have the value of, yes, nerd level stuff, but entertainment. People are paying, chipping in to make this happen. So then we've got Tom Barr. I don't think the bio is built out on this one yet, but Tom Barr, if you don't know who Tom Barr is, he's kind of one of the old souls when it comes to aquascaping and plants in general. He has a website called the Barr Report, and cool guy. We went up and collected manzanita with him and that kind of stuff when we drove to his house on a trip that we did, Jimmy, Joel, and I. And yeah, he debunks a lot of stuff where he does have that science background where, you know, he'll see like, well, what about this substrate? What about this substrate? What was the latest? Someone left a comment. He was running a test and they were asking if we could ask about it. It was a test on, oh man, I cannot remember. But it was a new, like, oh, I didn't even know he was running that test. But he's the guy that was kind of, I don't know, I don't want to say debunking stuff, but he would you know, really chase down that thing in a scientific way of like, hey, he's running an aquarium experiment. Then we've got Joe Cutler, and he's going to talk about mormorids, which that's the one I'm interested in because like there's a lot of mormorids, you know, baby whales, ghost knife, those families, and the fish like this that never come into the trade, which I think are cool. Maybe neat to keep. Like that's a pretty big fish, and I wonder if it behaves like those fish that we're normally keeping in an aquarium. So, but yeah, he's going to give his talk, and I haven't seen that talk yet, so I'm really excited. Most all of these other talks I've seen because I've seen a lot of talks. being, when you're in the hobby and a club scene for a long time, you kind of go through a bunch of them. So I'm also trying to make sure we find some that if you're a veteran of your club and you've been there for 20 years, you're still going to get new information. So, but yeah, he's an actual ichthyologist. So, you might have heard that term over the years of like, yeah, you can become an ichthyologist. He's an actual ichthyologist and he's into freshwater. That's a rare combo that you don't get too often. A lot of times it's focusing on saltwater side or marine side. And you can see here that he's got some stuff, stories and writing and photographs have appeared in National Geographic and other media outlets. So, he's going to be a great speaker to have. And we've got Lawrence Kent. He's a local guy, but he travels the world. And what's cool, I have a video on his fish room, so you could go watch that on the channel. But his fish room is like 98% fish that he's collected himself. And it's not just like, oh, he went to Peru a few times. No, he travels the world. So he's like, I want some gouramis. He goes and collects them, right? It's not just, it's a whole different level. And so because of all of this and all these trips and all the things he's done, he finds new species of fish all the time. And he writes for Amazonas Magazine and documents. I used to write for TFH, and very personable guy. Again, you can read about his thing. He works for the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and I believe most of his work is actually teaching like sustainable food farming techniques in, I don't know if it's third world, other countries basically. And on his days off, 1 or 2 days off a week when he's there, he can, charter a little flight to a different lake in Africa or wherever he's going to be. And yeah. So yeah, he's made fish presentations in 25 cities in on 3 different continents. He's collected fish in 23 countries and published 24 articles in Tropical Fish Hobbyist, Amazonas, and Cichlid News. Yeah, he's a great speaker. I was lucky enough to tour his fish room once. It took me 2 years to get in there because he's a busy dude. And then, but I don't even know what December is, but we've already got it booked. Zenzo let me know that he's got it booked out for this year, and he's working on 2022 already. I know that we had one person, a member, like, these are too sciencey. Can we get a talk on how to set up an aquarium? And I think the answer to that is probably not. Anything that I can cover in a video that I've kind of done, I don't think it's really worth to like bring that in as a speaker. And there might be like some cutting edge way, or there might be something about it that then it makes sense. But in general, it's kind of continued education, like a higher level. Like if this is the high school scene, this is more like the college courses, right? Shrimp King, we definitely are going to have the Shrimp King do one. I just don't know when. So Chris, and then also in theory, he's going to come with us to Peru, so there'll be that too. But he hasn't bought a plane ticket yet. Until someone buys a plane ticket, I never, say that it's set in stone. Once someone buys a plane ticket, usually they don't back out, or they don't let something come up like, oh, my brother's getting married or anything like that. But when you have a plane ticket, there you go. Yes, so Zenzo says upcoming talks will include experts in shrimp, catfish, and a fish veterinarian, which that's a rare thing to find, actual fish vet. There's not too many of them. There's lots of like wet pet specialists or wet vets, but they like that certification, from the best of my knowledge, which I should research this before I even say it, but I think it's like, oh yeah, you take like a month-long course and then you're like an expert on treating fish. And really, I think what it is, it's like in my opinion, it's like a hobbyist level, because a lot of these people would shop at my store and they'd be certified. They'd be like a hobbyist level, but they have at least the permissions to write a prescription for the drugs that a fish store can't get. So that is a good thing about it. And they know how to inject koi and that kind of stuff, but not all of that is purely applicable to like an aquarium hobby as opposed to a pond hobby. Because most of wet vets, like 90% of their stuff is actually like a turtle being brought in, treating like shell rot or something like that, or being called out to a field call to go treat koi. Because maybe someone's got some koi worth quite a bit of money, and it's $300 to inject it with an antibiotic, and that makes sense. Whereas if you bring in 4 neon tetras and they're like, cool, it's $400 or $300 to diagnose and treat these, and they don't treat them for you, they just give you the meds, it probably doesn't weigh out that much. So that's where they're still usually fairly green when it comes to like aquarium fish. I'm still holding out or holding hope for Dr. Tim Miller Morgan, because he's got some really cool stuff like yeah, ultrasounds and that kind of stuff. Are speakers paid? Yes, every speaker is paid. We pay them $500. So yeah. Yeah, they're asking if flights are involved. At some point, we do plan to have like in-house speakers. So this is kind of getting this spun up quickly, right? Like, okay, we've got Zenzo on board. Let's start getting stuff happen. Then we can start booking, you know, on a very long plane. It's like, okay, we get all these speakers. They're used to getting paid by us. Hey, we want to do an event. How many of you would like to come speak at CoryCon, right? Whatever, you know, something like that looks like. And then maybe they come here and they can do a video and all of that. So yes, we're paying all speakers. We're sending them all cameras. We're sending them all headsets. If you've been on part of online, well, just in live streams, right? Like I try pretty hard for video and audio, and then you'll find people that aren't trying that hard, and it's worse on the presentation. And really, it's going to be amplified with maybe someone's not used to being in front of the camera, and then also. Like you're trying to stay with the group. Like, what did he say? What was that fish's name? What was this? Right? So all of that we're trying to eliminate as much as possible, because scientific stuff gets pretty nerdy, and if you don't hear it right, like, what was that? How do you spell it? You know, and hopefully the chat will help for that. You know, someone will have heard it correctly, they'll spell it out. All right. Aquatic vets are few and far between. I met Dr. Richmond Lowe, wonderful guy. He's got a YouTube channel, right? I think it's that guy. I don't know. I don't know if it's the same guy, but he did mention that vet degrees discuss fish almost none of the time, unfortunately. Yeah, that's the problem, because whenever I was like consulting, like if it went above my skills, right, and I'm like, okay, well, maybe try a vet, it was like, oh gosh, this is like not what I was expecting from a vet level experience, because I can take my dog in and they're like a wizard. They're like, hey, we know everything about dogs, here's what's likely. And then you can ask them a fish, well, yeah, fish, yeah, you know, like, oh, we got one vet tech that has a fish. Like, well, that's not the same as, you know, and the weird part is, like, when I lost Hank originally, I called every single vet that I could find that listed them being a wet vet. And all of them, I'd be like, all right, yeah, I got a puffer fish, freshwater. I'm like, whoa, that's way above. And I was like, okay, next. And not a single one. The best I got was, you should try and get a hold of Dr. Tim Miller Morgan down in Oregon. I'm like, yeah, I know, he's out of the country and unreachable by phone. And so that was a wake-up call of, like, I literally called every single one I could find on the net, and I was spending days doing this in multiple states, and all of them were like, I ain't touching that with a 10-foot pole, you know? Even you know, like the universities that study virology of fish disease and stuff, they were like, well, yeah, once that fish dies, you can send it off. So it was, yeah, that was an eye-opening experience of, like, okay, hobbyist level, like, we are the experts. You know, I mean, they're obviously, like, Dr. Tim Morgan, I actually do consider to be an expert, because he focuses on ornamental fish, which not many people do. But short of, like, the few people in that category, maybe Dr. Lowe, and probably, you know, maybe there's 1,000 others, right? Whereas, like, oh, as far as dog and cat vet, there's 500,000 or something, right? Can I put stone catfish with platies? Sure, you can do that. Your name is green, mantle gentleman. Your name is green. Yeah, he does run so Dr. Lowe does run the channel, The Fish Doctor. My only criticism, which I love to criticize everything, anyone around me knows that I always have to go, well, here's what I think about that. My only thing is, I think Dr. Lowe knows how to treat the fish. I think it's not 100% applicable, though, to the hobbyist. And that might not be his goal. I'm not sure, you know, I've never talked to the guy, so I don't know what his goal is. Like, maybe his goal is to teach other vets how to do it, as opposed to teaching home hobbyists how to do it. But I think there's a gap in, like, I'm just a person with a 20-gallon aquarium to injecting fish and owning a $5,000 microscope and doing those kinds of things. So, and it's, you know, some stuff can't be treated without that kind of equipment and all that stuff. So you know, maybe you could never show that. But, you know, I think there's ways you could diagnose things, you know, like, oh, it looks like dropsy, it looks like this. And I think, you know, a series like that of what I would want to try to accomplish with Dr. Tim Morgan would be, how can hobbyists reasonably try and diagnose stuff, and then like how common is it and that kind of stuff, and start treating for it, as opposed to, you know, oh, well, to certify that, you do a fecal smear and you're going to need to, you know, gram stain the negative bacteria or whatever, and then look at it. Like, well, no one's going to be able to do that. So, you know, but if it was like, I think valuable things could be how to maybe use clove oil to sedate a fish and then maybe remove a tumor, how to just best heal things, talking about stress. Maybe there are ways to get MS-222, which is a better way to sedate a fish, but I don't know if you can just order that as a hobbyist, right? Like every year stuff changes. So I think some of that stuff would be really useful, as opposed to, because I've taken classes from Dr. Morgan, and you know, some of the stuff you do have to have a microscope, and that wasn't that applicable to me because I just wasn't going to buy a microscope, and it's a lot of work. Whereas, you know, just overall learning about disease, where it originates from, what's likely in which country, what fish are likely to get a disease. You know, because like, yeah, I learned how to clip gills out of a fish and put them under a microscope and look to see if they got like ammonia or gill burn. But I don't think that's applicable to the hobby. It kind of is in a store where if you brought in 1,000 koi, you could euthanize 2 of them as a sample and really go, okay, what parasites do they have? Did they have this problem? Do they have this problem, this problem? And the rest, the 998, would be better off for it. But as a home hobbyist, I don't think you're going to go, well, I've got 5 koi. I'm not going to euthanize 2 of them and dissect and analyze them to see what's wrong to keep the other 3 healthy. So it would be focusing purely on ways to get the most out of you can as a home hobbyist. All right. I've not seen any species profiles on ropefish. That's because ropefish aren't a fish, they're a reptile. And they're super finicky, at least in aquariums. And I myself have never had super long-term success in the store. And what that means is I can order a batch of 30, they do amazing. I order a batch of 30, they do amazing. I order a batch of 30, and nothing we do can keep them alive when they die. I order a batch of 30, and nothing we can do keeps them alive. And then nothing alive, and then fine. I've had multiple employees. We've tried different tactics. We've tried different setups, different pHs, different levels of tannins. We've tried so many things, and it kind of boils down to, did they come in good? If they come in good, we have no problems. If they come in a little rocky, like, ooh, you can see they've got, you know, some red streaking in them and maybe ammonia got to them or something, then we've never been able to pull through. We've tried, you know, tried heavy salt, tried different meds, tried tannins, tried bigger tanks, smaller tanks, bigger numbers, smaller numbers. We never were able to get a repeatable thing. And that's what we're looking for in consistency in a store, so that you can find a working repeatable method, and then you can teach it to the employees. So it's not just like, well, this employee can land the fish or the ropefish or whatever it's going to be, and it does great. The next person did it and they all died. Like, you have to have something like, here's the process. We found this med works at this dosage. We found this and this, and we reached out to, like, we have a local ichthyologist that studied food, like feeding fish for. But he's really knowledgeable on diseases, and he didn't have any insights for us either. Or what comes down to, he's like, yeah, you should use this med that no longer you can get. And so that's one of the big problems we do have in the hobby, is there might exist a treatment, and it gets outlawed, and then we don't find another one, right? Like, if there's one medicine that treats an illness, and then we just go for a long time, we don't find another one, that's kind of a problem. And, you know, I think I personally... Ropefish are reptiles, same family as bichers. Well, maybe I'm wrong. I can Google it. I'm not above being wrong. The reed fish. All right, fair enough. Fair enough, I'm wrong. Species of freshwater fish in the bicher family. Their scales are not like the like bichers though. Fish. Yeah, I'm wrong. So yes, make sure everyone rewinds, because the person was like, I learned the reptiles. That is misinformation. I'm guilty of that. Now I'm researching, because like I'm on the reptile forums, because the rope and reed fish are on reptile forums. Yes. All right. Good call on whoever called me out. Where'd he go? He or she? Kevin. Kevin Mooser. Good call. Where was I at? I was talking about, oh yeah, replicating medications, and I was gonna say that in my hobby, so I've been in the hobby, 15 years now? I've actually never seen a medication that stopped working from becoming overused or anything like that. Like, that's always the fear, right? That we're going to create a resistance to it. And I've talked with manufacturers of meds. So like at the highest level, they're chemists, they're scientists, all of that, right? You get to that highest level, and even they, so like a great example of this would be erythromycin, right? A general antibiotic. And we get a lot of flack for like prophylactically treating fish. And their scientists are like, well, that's exactly what this is meant for. Like, erythromycin is allowed to be used by the hobby because it's unlikely that the resistance will build up. 2, if it did, we have all of these other higher strength antibiotics to fill in that gap. And so this one has been designated the one that is kind of loose to be used. And that, you know, they say that that's kind of the same way in a lot of other fields. So like cattle and chickens and even humans. Like, erythromycin is like the lowest level. This will be an antibiotic. See if it gets that done. And then there's just, you know, you can go, like the next one up would be like, well, I don't know what the next one up is, but the one in the hobby would be maybe something like bifurin, or maybe, I can't think of it. I want to say AMP something, but it's amoxicillin, AMO, yeah, amoxicillin. So amoxicillin is much more harsh, and as a human, if you've ever taken amoxicillin, you know, like when you take it, you might have to reestablish like the fauna in your stomach and all of that. And so that's kind of how the regulations go, though. It's made that way that you're allowed to use it in a home level without a prescription. Like, that's the whole thing here, is the prescriptions are because they could be misused. It could do all this, and you could say like, well, that's the reason why. Don't do that. And then I would also say like, well, clearly we're not using enough medicines if all of these diseases are still running rampant. And what I mean by running rampant is 9 out of 10 fish that come in from a wholesaler or farm, maybe not all farms, but 9 times out of 10, they come in with diseases and they are sick. If we were using enough meds at the right levels, we should be able to eradicate this. Now, there are some challenges, things like tons of different sources coming into the same wholesale facility, or birds introducing parasites and things like that in outdoor fish farms, right? You can introduce things, but in labs and in, you know, high-end breeding facilities where they actually do practice, you know, like sterilizing your shoes and segregation between other species, and they quarantine for like one of the guppy ones. I was talking with a guy that consults for like guppy breeding and stuff like that, and when they bring a new strain in, it quarantines for a year in an entirely different building before you get to like mix into the main breeding lab. And the employees are separate, right? They don't even cross between the two. So we know the technology or the processes exist to actually have clean fish, but we're not achieving that. And so if we don't achieve that at the breeding level, and we don't achieve that at the wholesale level, and really most stores aren't achieving that at the store level, myself included, stuff still gets through us, right? But at what point can you just be like, well, you should just let your pets be sick, right? And so knowing that we're not ichthyologists, and we haven't practiced medicine, and we're not wet vets, and even the wet vets can't, you know, if you can't call a doctor and be like, hey, how do I save my fish? You kind of have to go like, hey, here's this remedy that I know pretty much works, and it's our best shot at keeping healthy fish. And so without a big redesigning of the way the fish industry works, I think, you know, I still think the best path is let's clean up as much of, you know, these bacterial infections and these parasites and the internal tapeworms we can at the home hobbyist level, so that when we are breeding and we're passing them back to a store, or passing them back to another fish keeper, we're at least not, upping the viral load on all these things. So, and medicines are expensive, and they take time, and all of those things don't translate to people making more money. If it's kind of like, like, let's say you go out to a restaurant, and if we're willing to cook our own food at the restaurant, they're not going to pay to have cooks anymore, right? And as a hobby, we basically have said collectively, like, we're willing to buy fish even when we know they're not clean and healthy. Now, visually they might look okay, but we know that they can still carry stuff. And so there's not that big of an incentive for people up the chain to prevent that if they're going to sell either way, right? So we haven't created, because there's no good alternative. If there was alternatives, people would choose that. Corey, these diseases exist in nature. They 100% do. The problem is, whenever people compare nature to the home aquarium, they're almost nothing alike. So you've heard me talk about, don't try and replicate nature, because nature's not always good, right? And so let's take something like an ick cyst on a fish, right? So in my 40-gallon breeder in there, when the ick cyst falls off, it hatches out into 2 more ick cysts and attaches to the fish. And it just keeps that process until I stop it with some medicine, right? Well, in the wild, maybe you're in a lake, or maybe you're in a river, whatever it's going to be, an ick cyst drops off. You might be a mile down the river when it hatches out and it doesn't come back to you. So it's not that like, oh, ick's getting worse and worse and worse and worse and worse, and then you find your body finally succumbs to it, right? Now in a lake, maybe it hops to another fish, and maybe the population density is big enough that that's not a problem. But there's all these different things that go on, and then there's also the fact that fish just straight up don't live as long for most of the species in the wild like they do in our aquariums, right? So things like camellias redworm in our aquarium, pretty deadly to guppies, where it'll take them out and you get about maybe 6 months out before they get too skinny and they die. That same disease in an angelfish pretty much will live its whole life, because it can eat enough and it can keep up with it that you won't have that fish die. And so you're going to get all of these things going on in your aquarium as well as the wild. And a lot of times we're hypersensitive in our aquariums. We're looking for things to treat and all of that. But I do believe that we're better off for trying to eliminate diseases where we can, instead of just letting them run amok in our fish rooms. So that's my personal opinion. And that's the thing, is it is an opinion. It's not a way of life. It's not a rule. It's not, I prefer to have my fish not have diseases that I can knowingly see and yeah. I don't know why I said see and see, but. In a perfect world, everybody would have a microscope and they would solve the world's problems. If Corey recommends me some extreme food for my L46 zebra plecos, I will buy some from the co-op, no doubt. I think, legit, so I always hate this because I don't even like being, because it's almost like I have to come up with a food, like, okay, well now it's free money, I gotta do it. If it was me personally, I probably wouldn't feed extreme food to zebra plecos. I would be doing frozen bloodworms, and I mean, maybe there'd be a pellet I would do, maybe, right? Like I know 2 breeders that have bred zebra plecos. Both of them basically used very big pellets, like Dean, I believe, and if Dean's in the chat, set me straight, because I don't know this to be a fact, and I don't want to make a sale off of this. But I believe he's feeding the like the largest pellet, like the monster extreme pellet, I believe. Because we had talked about another breeder doing that. They were using the New Life Spectrum super big pellet. And so Dean was using, I believe, the extreme one, which I don't think Dean has zebra plecos anymore now, but I would be using lots of frozen bloodworms, frozen brine shrimp, that kind of stuff, and then filling in with some kind of pellet. If you want it to be extreme, sure. But if you're trying to build the fat and breed zebra plecos, which that's, I think, I always assume people's goal, I would really be focusing on frozen foods. All right. I've got a 20-gallon high with angelfish, dojos, a Cory, and a betta. I want to carp it with microsword. How much should I buy to carpet? No CO2 and just easy green. Like, let's see, a 20-gallon high. This is 2 feet long, 1 foot back. I would probably do 6 to 8 of them, but I'm going to talk you out of this. The Corydoras and the Dojo are going to be kind of digging up that substrate a lot, and it's going to be hard to get a carpeting plant going. So know that you'll probably hit like a lot of like, it's kind of frustrating. If you plant the whole pot in the substrate, it'll likely stay there, where if you like cut it up and put each one in, they're just going to constantly be kicking them up. Unless you can, if you could rehome the bottom dwellers to another tank for like 2 months, let everything grow in, you could add them back in. But I think that's going to be an exercise in frustration for you. All right. I got rosy red minnows to stock in my outdoor wildlife pond. I have them in a QT tub inside, and they keep getting bent spines and dying a day or two later. So I can't keep rosy red minnows in Washington State, so I don't have a whole lot of experience with them, but I do know they're sold in a lot of pet stores as feeder fish, and those feeder fish, they can run into some pretty poor environments and genetics. My advice would be making sure that, so you've got a quarantine tub inside, but is it 10 gallons? Is it 100 gallons? And then also, like, I'd go sparingly. Like if it was me personally, if I got access to rosy red minnows in Washington and I was able to do this, I would try to get like a group of like 5. Like the less the better. The less chance of more disease and all that, and the better the water quality is going to be. And then they could breed up a storm, because they're not that hard to breed. I remember researching them, and don't they, I believe, lay in like round PVC pipe at the bottom of an aquarium or a pond like that. I think they lay on the upside down part of a pipe, and I think that's why their feeders are fairly easy to breed. So, but otherwise, I think all you can really do is make sure you have pretty good water parameters and food. And if those sources are bad, try a different source. Like maybe you're getting from a chain store, maybe try to get them from a non-chain store, or yeah. You could also search on, ask around in local groups and that kind of stuff, because maybe someone else got a pond and they're thriving, and you could be like, hey, I just want a scoop of those. How much for a scoop? I'll come over. Just some guy saved his pufferfish by joining the forum. Yes, if you want to, get more in-depth advice, not as much for me because I'm a busy dude, but I do chime in. But there's tons of knowledgeable people on the forum. You can source a lot of problems and ideas and really whatever you want, and it takes like 5 minutes a day. 5 minutes a day, you're kind of in the know on what's going on with Aquarium Co-op and the forum and other people's big projects, and you'll find your own little pet projects. That's what's cool about it. If you're into bettas, there's other betta nerds on there. If you're into monsterfish, there's going to be monsterfish people there. Discus, all that kind of stuff. And so you can just kind of, tag some threads that you want to get notifications on and kind of see the updates. There's lots of aquarium journals, fish room builds. If you're thinking about building a fish room, lots of ways to learn about that. My pea puffers won't eat frozen brine shrimp. Do you think they would eat live baby brine? Live baby brine usually is more palatable because they've got that feeding instinct, kind of like a dog wants to chase a rabbit and all of that. You get that same behavior out of fish normally. So usually live foods are taken to easier than non-live foods for fish. All right, my Inkbird, I'm probably blocking my microphone. My Inkbird 308 temperature controller has an outlet for heating and another for cooling. Would I be able to plug in 2 heaters to the same temperature controller using both outlets? I have no idea. My guess, like I've used a device like that in the past. Usually you're setting the temperatures, and it'd be in the software in this where either there's going to be a bypass using for both for heat or not, but they're more meant for like a greenhouse where, if the temperature hits this high, turn this fan on to exhaust the heat. If the temperature hits this low, turn on the heater, right? So I've had some more scientific grade ones that let me bypass and set what it wanted to do with both plugs. But I think at that Inkbird level, without reading the manual, it's probably going to be just doing that. And that's kind of something that I might have to look into you know, we're in the first seasons of my fish room here. So there's a lot of, how am I going to fix that? Like, it's pretty hot right now. Like I know, for instance, on my heat exchanger that's installed in there, there's an option to just vent, right? And then the AC, like not AC units, but the heaters, right? They can also be AC. They can also be dehumidifiers, right? So there's all these options and settings, and you know, you want it to be repeatable. And so it's like, okay, we need to test this. How's that look for a week? Like, okay, so I know in late June, I'm going to switch it to dehumidifiers, and that takes away the heat. Like, all right, that's working. And you'll find, you know, that's what you're going to do with that Inkbird. But that Inkbird is a useful tool, especially like if you had an axolotl tank, or not maybe an axolotl tank, but like a tank that you don't want to get too hot. You could have a heater during the winter, and then, oh, it got too hot, January or June 20th, have a kick on a little fan to cool the water down with some evaporative cooling. My local fish store sells adult brine shrimp for $1.50 a cup. That is crazy cheap. Now, there's kind of a big scam, if you will. I don't want to call it a scam. Big variance in selling brine shrimp. So, like, it's obviously, well, I should say it's not. Maybe they do. Maybe they're losing a ton of money. But it's not going to be a cup of like brine shrimp with no water. It's going to probably be like, the way you're always like the businesses that sell the brine at wholesale to us, you're supposed to measure it out with something. So like, oh, you could do, like we used to do a tablespoon of brine shrimp. So we catch brine shrimp in a brine shrimp net, right? And then you take a tablespoon and then you put that into the salt water, and that's how many you got. And it was a lot of brine shrimp, right? So really it's going to matter about how many brine shrimp are in that cup. Now, the fact that you can buy brine shrimp or any live food for like $1.50, that's cool, because you can just grab that every time you go there. We don't really do it because for us, it always gets into this big ordeal of like, we can't get enough, you know, whether it's blackworms or brine shrimp when we were doing it. And we was always losing money on it. So people were angry and we were losing money, and people would become dependent on it. So don't let your fish become dependent on it. There'd be people that would, well, I buy brine shrimp every day at lunch. And then if we were out for 2 weeks because the wholesaler was out, my fish won't eat, it's going to die, how dare you? And it's like, look, you should not have gotten it to only eat this live food. It is a good food, but make sure you're keeping your fish well apprised of other foods as well. Can you support 20 longs the way you did in my tank? Yeah, or my store, yes. Yep, I've seen all the way done to 125s. I don't know if you can go bigger. I haven't seen that done yet. Can you breed multiple Corys? Wait, can you breed multiple Cory breeds in the same spawning tank? You can, but you open yourself to the chance of hybridism. There are some that won't hybridize. However, I think you're also going to run into a lot of egg eating. So like 10-gallon tanks, that kind of stuff is so cheap, at least in not Washington, but the United States. I really would separate them. I don't think you don't gain anything by doing multiple and trying to breed. If it's an accident, well, it's just a happy accident. But if you're trying to breed them, I think money well spent in getting some more containers going. My sand substrate turns black, even though I have a devil thorn snail and dolly loaches. I don't know what dolly loach is. Coolie loach? Maybe it probably autocorrected from coolie loaches. Yeah, I've got that going on a little bit in here. I just added some auto sinkless last night actually, but I do need to put something there that's going to kind of churn the substrate a little more. I haven't done almost anything with this tank. I've got a light that's not turned on right now, one of our new lights, but so Zenzo tried to catch the fish out because I'm like, well, I don't know if I'm gonna go with the Rosy barbs. I had him in there, He got 2 out in an hour, and then he gave up because he was like, I'll just catch him. And I'm like, sure. And then he realized, yeah, the 800 gallon's insane. So there's still a few more to catch out. I still kind of want to put the platies in, but I don't want the platies in with the Rosy barbs when I want the Rosy barbs to come out. And then last night I was laying in bed, I was like, man, how have I not done a million pearl gouramis? I still want to do that tank too. So I knew I needed, so I did add the red bristlenose, and now there is 6 autocinkless in there. And I really need to get in there and just spend time where, oh, by the way, our house finally, like, we accepted an offer yesterday. So now we can turn some of our attention from having to like mow extra lawns and do all this extra crazy stuff all the time to, all right, we should settle down a little bit and I can figure out, you know, like I want to put some root tabs in there. I want to spread the plants. I want to get some other plants planted in there. I want to get the lights set up. Like the lighting setup I have there, it's okay. But once I put one of our new lights on, I was like, this is amazing. Like, all right, I got to go back to normal lights. And so I want to get either 2 or 4 of our new lights on there, which I do have, but I got to set up the timers, which I just didn't have a timer, so that's what stopped me. I run into that a lot of like, yeah, I don't have a timer. I set it up on the 230-gallon tank. I had a timer for that one, but not this one. And so, but then also I got to get a ladder and like stand on the top of the tank and take those lights down if I'm going to do that. So, and then I'm getting, the problem is there's a lot of algae where those, like all those lights hit. And then outside of that, there's not enough light for the plants. So yeah, as always, how do we fix it? Well, we get some algae eaters going and we play with the light a little bit. So I think it also looks better. I think visually it looks better. And I definitely, where's Ladybird? On this side. So if I turn that bright light on, she goes to like the little bit dimmer side too. So I gotta play with that a little bit. So, and I still gotta get that 230. I still don't know what I'm gonna do like decoration wise on the inside. I just haven't. Clown loaches with the Mabu puffer. I've tried that in the past with Hank, and clown loaches love to lay on top of each other and other fish, and that really freaked Hank out. So I haven't tried it with Ladybird or Murphy, but I think it would be similar for all of them. Will there be an 8-hour live stream this Thanksgiving? I don't know. As I get older, I like spending more time with my family and my dogs and that kind of stuff. So it's likely that I will live stream, but I'm not necessarily going to commit to 8 hours because it's kind of hard on the body. Like it doesn't seem like it, but it's like what you guys see is an 8-hour stream, but you don't see like the recovery and the prep time. Like I spend a day prepping, and then there's like a day recovering. I'm just like, so you get done and you're just like, oh my gosh, I think I'm dying. And then like it's always like the family, because it's Thanksgiving, right? And then the family's like, how was it? What are you doing? Okay. And then it's like you're back on, and so you're just so drained by the end of that day when you do an event like that. So, I don't know. Yeah, maybe that's the thing. You know, we've done it in the past before. We had like guests and that kind of stuff, but everyone, you know, sometimes everyone's got their own thing going, so it's like, oh, it's just me for 8 hours. It's gonna be rough. But I also want to try to do some different stuff. Like maybe there's, I don't know how to pull it off yet, but I don't want to always just do the same thing. Like, hey, you're gonna do that thing again? Like, yeah, maybe. If it's super fun, I'll do it. Like a hangnail going on, or a piece of skin on my fingers, drive me nuts. What algae eaters or algae-eating fish can I put in my brackish figure 8 puffer tank? What's puffers? The puffer made it much harder. Well, I don't know that anything's gonna work. You could try some mollies if you have hair algae, but the puffers might go after them, and you can't do snails. Yeah, I'm not sure. Let's see here. What was the other question I saw that I was going to answer? Oh, geos in the tank. I've got geos in the shop tank, and so part of it is I always want to diversify, so I don't just have the same tanks everywhere. But yes, that was my answer. I was like, I should put some geos in here, but I don't necessarily want to 100% do that. You know, so I mean, I love geos, and I could do a different geo, geophagus, by the way. But I don't know. I haven't committed to it yet. It's like I'm not in a race, so I know a lot of people are like, why aren't you doing anything with that yet? It's like, well, it's really, really hard to catch fish back out of there. So you really got to be like, what do I really think about this? I should do FaceTimes on stream with subscribers. I was gonna say never. Unlikely. It would end up being audio's bad, technical problems. Like we tried that. YouTube built out a thing to do that, and I did that, and it was a nightmare. People were late to show up. People are having audio problems. I can hear you, but you can't hear me. Lag would happen, and all of that kind of stuff. It's like, this is just not good. Like for anyone involved, this is frustrating. And you know, like if we were going to do that, it would be a call-in show, because I think everyone can reasonably dial a phone number, and you can listen to it in the phone, and you can talk through the phone. And if we had all the software going and it worked flawlessly, that could happen. But when you start, like, half the time, and I'm a guy that's good at tech. Half the time, Randy and I have problems where there's just like software glitches. Now, part of my problem is I've got headsets, I've got different microphones depending on, are we filming a video? Are we doing a live stream? Am I in a conference call? All of those things are kind of different. And you would think, like, why not just streamline it all to be this microphone? Because even this microphone can have problems. If it comes out like one little notch, then nothing's going through. And this microphone's actually pretty good, but, you know, it's just... And you run into problems where other people are having problems. I run into that fairly frequently, too. Like when I was doing some YouTube meetings, it's like, I've had 3 Google Meet meetings today, but they couldn't hear me. It's like, okay, I'm pretty sure it's not me. So, yeah. I run a public aquarium here in Oklahoma. I order from y'all on a weekly basis, ordering Easy Green plants. Just curious if you guys have more commercial sizes of Easy Green. We used to. We used to have like, we used to have a gallon, and then we used to have a 1 liter, and we basically have made the concentrations more concentrated, so now all we have is a 16 ouncer. In a perfect world, I care about the environment, and so maybe we'll launch some kind of big use program like that. But at the moment, part of the other problem is, like, you would think buying a bunch of these, you're like, hey, that's not very good for the environment. The problem we found is you start trying to ship gallon things of liquid, right? The cap breaks 1 out of 4 times or whatever, right? And so that's horrible for the environment as well. So, and that's why you don't see a lot of like gallon liquid jugs on Amazon and that kind of stuff. And there is one, like, I had this idea probably last week or something. I was like, I wonder, like, you know, they make those like cleaning solutions and everything where they put like the pump head part. Like you just fill it with water and like the pump head makes the cleaner happen. I was like, I wonder if there's some way we could make recharge packs or something in a fertilizer, and then we could ship dry instead of wet all the time. Like we'd still sell that bottle, but then you could refill it. The problem I know is they have to be mixed in a certain order and all of that. But I was like, well, what if we could just like, what if it was simple? And I haven't asked yet. Like, what if we just eliminated iron or whatever the problem thing is? Because I think if you used, like, we'd have to find a mold inhibitor that was dry, where we're using something as a liquid. So we'd have to have that chemical. And then I also wonder, like, let's say you take just one raw chemical, and if that dust hits your eye, do you go blind? Whereas like, oh, well, it's diluted down in the water, it's no problem, right? So yeah, I do think about that kind of stuff, but I'm not sure that I've got the answer is the problem. The foaming sub-dispensers, no, there's companies now that, like, they focus on being green, and basically what it is like you buy, for lack of a better term, you'd buy one Easy Green bottle, and you'd get a pump container, or pump head, right? And then, like, this part right here, so, try not to get Easy Green all over my desk, but this part, the white part right here, it would actually be a cartridge system. So imagine if we had all the dry ingredient fertilizer that lived in here. As you pumped water through it, in theory, it would dissolve into the water as you did it. And that's what they do for, like, soaps and some disinfectants and stuff. I'm not even sure, because I'm sure someone's probably like written a paper about how it doesn't even help the environment at all or something, but just that kind of line of thinking of how could we get massive amounts of fertilizer to a public aquarium in a way that isn't just like, well, it's just as bad for the environment. So I don't know that answer yet. We tried those bigger containers, and they were just not even profitable for us. But on top of that, Because like it's one thing, I don't really mind if we don't make money, but it's better for the environment. You know, some stuff has to make money, obviously. But then when it was like we were making money and we'd get containers that, and we tried like 10 different types of caps and tapes and bubble wraps and the problem is like I think this when that gallon container, if it's riding on a van or in a back of a truck and it's doink to the bottom, I don't think there's any way we can really cradle that. Why not sell premix in a soft container like aluminized plastic to refill? Well, part of that is we'd have to make sure that the manufacturer could have the machine that would pull that off, and then the way it's stored and stuff can get weird. So, but I mean, there's always a million things, like why not do all the things in the world? And the reason is we're limited by time. So like I could spend the next 6 months figuring out how, like pick one basically, ship international, I could get refill pouches on Easy Green, I could launch a light, or I could maybe not have a heart attack from working so much. Like I could pick one. That's the reality of it. And so it's like, okay, well, you know, we already have this product. If a lot of this stuff you kind of put on a list of like, this would be nice to have, and nice to have. Nice to have, you're walking a trade show and you kind of, what is that? Take a couple steps back, like that's what we're looking for. We need that pouch right there with Easy Green. That would be cool. Instead of having to re-engineer things. Then you got to figure out where can I get the pouches? How do I get that pouch to the manufacturer? How do we get the pouches pre-printed? They got to have a barcode on them. How do we do that part? And so that's why it's 6 months. It's not just like, oh yeah, you know, I checked a different box on the order form. It's not that easy. What is this? Similar to flavored milk straws? Gross. Yeah. Would you just sell a whole box of 16-ounce bottles? Probably not. And the reason being, so we get our whole shipping process is based on what we normally ship. Same with any discounts, which I think we've discounted to like, I don't even think I can say. It's a very low single-digit number. Because we ship, you know, like almost a couple $100,000 with shipping every month. And yeah, so I can say how much they raised it. Shipping prices went up by 5%. I was able to claw back some of that percent on the lower end. But that savings does matter. And part of the problem is, like, if we, like a big box like that, we'd have to ship, like maybe it's just UPS slow, take a while to get there, but it would still, the shipping would be very expensive. And so that's why a lot of companies just don't ship lots of liquids and all that kind of stuff. But I do believe it's the best method. Like dissolvable pellets, they have to be mixed in a certain way. Like you have to mix it, like it takes giant, 1,000-gallon machines. You pour the ingredient, let it mix for this dwell time, right? You keep agitating it the whole time, and then you add the next ingredient. If you do it in the wrong order, things bind, and then it's not fertilizer anymore. So I mean, there's more to it than just like put a thing in the water and it works. That's why I would have to ask, like, can we eliminate one of these ingredients? Can we switch an ingredient? And I've been down that road at the very beginning because I never wanted to sell liquid. But maybe now with the amount of money, or maybe like a different machine can do it, or I'm not sure. Best South American fish to keep snails in check that won't get too big. I am like the weakest at South American fish. I'm trying to think. Who's gonna eat some snail? I can think of African cichlids that can eat snails. I cannot think of South American fish. I don't know. I honestly don't know. Did you get the number to rent the refrigerator container? Oh no, haven't. I see. We haven't inquired, but Randy is saying he doesn't think it's going to be more expensive. It's like the container's like the same size. It's the space. The expensive part is being on the boat, not what type of container it is. So I think it's just going to be the $15,000, which is like, oof. Wish I could tag people. Why can't I do that anymore? I don't know. So at the beginning of the day, when I was in the chat, because we chat for like an hour before we go live, like the first 10 minutes, it wouldn't let me do it. And then later, it let me do it. But I don't know. YouTube's changing all kinds of things, and I don't control it. So maybe it's a bug. Maybe it's a feature. Maybe they're testing. I have no idea. Could Easy Green be done as a tablet that you put into water? No. Drop the tablet in the bottle, add distilled water? Nope, because you don't have a mold inhibitor yet. So bare minimum, you'd have to add a mold inhibitor. But yes, you can't. It doesn't work that way. Once you add the liquid, it doesn't work. So in the form that I know of now, there might be something else out there. I'm not saying there isn't. But if you're like, hey, I just want Easy Green to do exactly what it does right now, no, it can't do that. But that's why we could ask, like, what would we lose to pull that off? Why does everything have to come from abroad? Well, the easiest answer is, Chad, why don't you make sponge filters? And then you might say, well, I don't own a factory, or I don't know how to do that. And I would say, that's exactly the problem we have. We always try and source first from America. And then when we can't find anyone that will do it in America, then we go abroad. So that's why. And I can give you a perfect example. Let me set the stage. Let me set the stage here, and we go to this. All right, setting the stage. So after looking for like 2 years basically. So the story on an intake sponge goes, I was buying intake sponges from Rio Tam, which is a company, and they sell like pond pumps and all that. There was a pond intake sponge, right? And they would keep running out. And at one point, they had run out for like 16 months. And so I was like, it was a good selling product, still is a good selling product. I have to get our own made. Like because what they would do is they'd be like, how many do you want, Corey? We'll have them made in China, and then we'll sell them to you, right? So I was paying the markup and having to wait these ridiculously long lead times because they would never, even though I was like, I'm buying them all and selling them, bring more in. Nope. So then with Flip Aquatics, right? He was getting in Matin filters, and he had said, hey, we could have them make your intake sponges. And I was like, great, that sounds amazing. That'd be great. And so the problem is that company refuses, will not. Well, no, it's refusing and can't. So they buy, so the company that's in the United States, they buy foam in like, imagine giant pallet size cubes, like 10 feet by 10 feet or whatever, 10 foot, 10, 10, 10. And then they cut it down with, giant saws, right? And then they drill a hole all the way through, and that's how you get these types of intake sponges. And then you're supposed to like just put the plug back in. Now that's clearly inferior, in my opinion, to one that is made with a mold. So the ones that we have done, they actually have a mold. You inject the foam in, and they're made to the specifications that we want. One, a better porosity, because we couldn't pick one with them, so that we couldn't, we just have finer foam, right? We'd have finer foam like every other sponge filter, right? And then you'd have to you push that thing in the end. That's not a product that's been designed to do what it needs to do. And as things get looser, you can get stuff that gets wedged in there. And so we didn't go along with that company. Now, Flip Aquatics, they still just went. They never sold this product, by the way, but once they realized that they could have them make this one, they were willing to sell the inferior one. I wasn't willing to compromise and sell the inferior one. So then, yes, we go, and that's when you guys started seeing me take trips to China, right? And I found someone who was willing to make it out of a mold and make it correctly. And so that's why we have our 3 different sizes. They don't have holes at one end and all of that. And so, yes, the answer is, why do we source abroad? It's because we can't find anyone to do it in the United States, right? I can give you another example. We put the kibosh on this. We've been working on this for over a year now. These are all calcium blocks that we wanted to make. So things that are like wonder shells or zoom ed plankton banquet blocks, like they're almost all calcium, right? There's other ones in the saltwater world, they're calcium blocks. We use them for snails, we use them for shrimp, we use them for hardening water for livebearers. And like no matter what we do, they would keep, like, so one, this is the test packaging. Like they were like, yeah, you can sell them like this. I'm like, you can't sell them like this. What are you talking about? And this is after working with them for way too long, right? The problem is they're all brittle and they leave like crunchy stuff in here. And so after all of that, there was going direct to a manufacturer, right? I just got stuff on my desk. So going direct to a manufacturer, we weren't really going to save, we'd save like 10 cents on a product that's like $2 or whatever, right? So we'd save like 10 cents instead of just buying like, you know, one of the saltwater products or a wonder shell or a zoom ed plankton banquet blocks, any of that. So my mantra to Randy after trust me, it's really hard to abandon a project after you've been back and forth for a year and you've got multiple samples, and I've put in lots of hours, so has Randy, and so has that team of people. And it's like, so what is it to the customer here? It's not better. It's not cheaper. The only thing we could get, possibly, and we don't know this yet, but we can never get enough wonder shells. We can never get enough zoom ed plankton banquet blocks, right? So if we can never keep them in stock enough, we maybe could keep them more in stock. However, we don't know the production capacity of them. Are they just going to do the same, like, are we going to have the same problems as zoom ed and wonder shell and everyone else has? Because the whole goal, so I had lots of goals. Goal was like, oh, maybe we could put fertilizers in here, a slow release time fertilizer. We could do a feeder. We could do, we could do anything we wanted. Like, oh, these ones are also an iron additive if you're running lots of red crypts and this and that. So like, it was a delivery method that we're a year into that we're scrapping. And so right now we can't even find anyone outside of the United States. So not only can we not find someone in the United States, we have no one outside of the United States yet. But if I was to stumble in, and like, what do you know? Vietnam, there's someone in Vietnam making these. We would work with them because we can't find it in the United States. So trust me, we would love it if our stuff was made in the United States so that it didn't cost a crazy amount in shipping and it wasn't bad on the environment, as bad, like it's still bad, but and a lot of times in America, our infrastructure is really set up for people to actually manufacture things. We send a lot of it in the United States and then we put it together and then we sell it. That happens a lot. Look at cars, look at a lot of our industries. A lot of it is someone physically makes a part, we import the part, we put all the parts together because we're good at that, and then we sell that product. Yeah. So that's why. I mean, we talk about this all the time. Like, why can't we just, like, luckily our fertilizer is made in the United States. Like, we do have products that are made in the United States. Like, it's not just everything, but it's, until we just don't have a lot of manufacturing industry in the United States. We have a lot of put stuff together, but not creating raw parts. I mean, we mostly have the things that are just way too expensive to ship. Like I'm sure we still have steel mills and a lot of raw stuff, but when it comes to, I don't know, like I can't think of something that makes sense, but I don't know. Like we probably don't have a ton of plants in the United States that make HDMI cables. Like maybe we have a couple, but the reality is they're probably, that's the ones made in China. Like that's just the way we have set up our country. And now we could totally change over 10, 20, 30 years, right? But right now, if I gotta wait 30 years, I'm an old man. So it's like, what can we do now in a reasonable way? And so that's what we try for. But by all means, if someone's out there and you are a sponge manufacturer that actually makes the sponge and not just modifies the sponge, reach out. We're willing to try to work with you. Same for most of our products. Like if we get it outsourced or like out of country and you make it in country and you want to be competitive, because also my fear is like, it can't be like, well, sponge filters are now $40 because they're made in America. Like, well, that's not going to work for the average hobbyist either. So, cue the emails. Only email us if you own that company. Don't be like, well, my buddy Bob, his dad owns a company that might be willing to do a thing. Like, no. you gotta own that company and be making a decision right now, like, I'm willing to develop this sector. And you'd have to research and know, like, whoa, what's the cost go into that? How is the machinery? Because we get that all the time, like, oh, I know a guy that knows a guy that knows a guy that might be able to do a thing. Okay, but that's, we're not going to chase down four dimensions to have that person go, no, I build boats. No, that's not what I do. Yeah. Would love a compartment on the sponge filter to put crushed coral in. Just put it on the inside. But yes, I mean, I've thought about that. You could have a topper, that kind of stuff, but you could just put it on the inside of it. I've seen people do that. I'm not a fan of it, but see, I kind of believe if you need to put crushed coral inside of a sponge filter, you're better off with a hang-on back. Even though I don't sell hang-on backs, you're better off with a hang-on back, I think. I help manage Amazon's middle mile delivery quality, and I love the topic. Have you hit the scale of shipping that it makes sense for you to self-ship at scale across the country to a node? No, we haven't. Yeah, so super nerdy talk. Over this last week, I've been looking at some 3PLs, like in different countries. And we run every year. We run financials on opening a second warehouse at a strategic location, and that doesn't make sense yet. You really got to be a big player for that to make sense. Like the numbers we're looking at, and we're a $10 million company, right? And it's not even close yet. It's like, whew. So yeah, it's and the problem is logistics are always changing. Like I thought we were getting pretty close to launching worldwide. And now Europe wants us to collect taxes in every country and stuff. And I'm like, oh, the overhead of that is another full-time, that's going to be another full-time hire for compliance. Because in the United States, we have to open up a business license in most of these states and in some of the counties. And then we have to remit all these taxes. And there's inquiries and audits. So I have a full-time bookkeeper that's just we're getting audited by Alabama today. All right, start submitting the stuff. Go down the dance with them. And it's in Alabama, we might have only paid them $700 because that's all the business we did there. But it might cost me $1,000 in employee hours to go, yep, we paid our $700. And so the onset of that of going worldwide with that, it's oh, that's one more thing. I don't know if I can handle it. I don't know. We can't even get taxes to be 100% correct. Even in our softwares, and we're using expensive stuff, county lines change and things happen where it's I'm being charged 0.2% more than I should be because I'm not in this county. As long as we give it to the county, we're in legal compliance. We could technically charge $100 tax on everything we do as long as we pay it correctly. But there's no way to fix that. Every city and county and stuff like that, how many of those are in the United States? How many legislations are going in every week? And it's just constantly doing this, and you missed 1/16% increase, but it's only for this type of goods and not that type of goods. Oh, plants exempt. Oh, that dry good? No, you got to do that one. So we're trying as hard as we can. Do we do much business in Texas? I think we do a decent amount, but I don't know. I know that we're big in Indiana and California, but beyond that, I haven't memorized where to go. Oh, who's where? I do love Alabama for my examples. Well, in my mind, it's always a remote place because I've never been there. I've never been to Alabama yet. I want to go, but I haven't been there yet. Yeah, I ran a distribution node, definitely not cheap. Yeah, we're trying. It seems one of those things every time we just get a little closer, and there's a new thing, oh, dang it. No, Dallas Aquarium North use your products? Interesting. See, I didn't even know that. I know we lose a lot of public aquarium type of accounts because we won't do the tax exemption. And it's just because it's such a nightmare in the software. Like, you know, imagine just like a giant machine working and then like a giant wrench just coming through that thing and making the whole system explode. Like that's what has to happen to be like, oh, well, we have to refund tax exemption. No, you can't just get like, we don't have the ability to exempt you. And then like, we can't just save that on account. And then we got to get all the accountants involved to like justify why things are going back. We have to make sure that we're not paying that tax on accident to the state which you're buying from. And then we have to prove it to them. And there's all these things that happen. And it's all to save like, well, we're going to save $4.12. Like I would just hand them the $4.12. The problem is it's the hundreds of dollars we're going to lose in all the employees' time to make it happen. So that's where we're like, unfortunately, we can't. Do I do anything with Arizona local fish stores? Right now, I don't do anything with any local fish stores. We're trying. I'm trying to see, does it make sense? Like, again, here's another example. I was like, all right, maybe we can test pilot King Lee's store in Minnesota. If we can see what products would make sense to ship across the country and let him sell and still make a profit. And then shipping went from like $3,000 to $15,000 to get the product. And now we're like, well, we're barely making enough money on this product. So we either got to raise the price a ton and consumers aren't going to like that, or we don't, but then we don't sell the King Lee. It means I can't wholesale it out to some other stores, so we can't fulfill that like people want. So we're stuck in this like, well, I guess we got to wait to see if pricing ever comes back down with shipping containers. And the forecast right now looks like that'll happen in about 2023. So it's like, oh, good. Another year of people going, why haven't you expanded? Because I'm bad. That's why. I'm bad. All these stories of regulation you have to follow reminds me of the book, Everything I Want to Do is Illegal. And that's honestly the stuff that burns me out, is like making a great product, but then getting caught up in like the not fun part of like, oh, what do you mean we got to do this crazy thing for this crazy thing? You know, like it's not fun to, you know, okay, like we had meetings. We have meetings and strategizing. How are we going to tell the public that they can only buy 2 lithium-ion batteries products from us at a time, and them not think somehow we're trying to scam them? You're just trying to get me, because 2 of these is less than our free shipping threshold. So we have people that think like we're just trying to scam them and not get them to free shipping. We have you know, like, why can't you do it this way and all this? And we have meetings. We spend meetings going, how are we going to offend the least amount of people trying to sell a product that I actually like, instead of just going, we'll spend those meetings trying on a new product to launch. So that's not the fun part. It's just not fun. All right. Is it okay to feed my angels and my guppy culls? Risk versus reward? Yeah, I would. Well, yeah, as long as they're small enough. I wouldn't be putting like jumbo ones where they're just gonna like kill them. If they just like eat them, sure, should be okay. We love you here from Minnesota. I know, I got to go visit King's store. It's on my to-do list, but I want to do an event. And so what we're really trying to do is we're trying to get an event done soonish in Washington, get, you know, Zenzo's feet wet, see how that goes, what had fun, did we get feedback? And then when we go somewhere else, like, okay, let's hopefully make it better. Because we can always do more events at home, but it's real costly to do it somewhere else. So it's like, if we have this event, like, oh, okay, and it'll be easier to, like, we can go see the venue before we do it, you know. We don't have to rent as many hotels because everyone kind of lives here already. And then we can go, okay, we're going to Minnesota. We're going to do X, Y, Z. That worked out. That didn't. This did. Let's do it. The other thing, I will say, the other thing is we will only do things 100% legal. And so there are so many vendors where I'm just like, huh, how do you pull that off? How did you go to Aquashella and sell stuff? Because that change, and you sell online right now, that changes you, and I don't know specifically about Florida, but a lot of states, because I've been a lot of meetings with accountants. The minute we go and sell something physically, if I show up somewhere and I'm like, would you like to buy this in person? I'm in Minnesota. It highly likely makes it so we're treated like we have a physical store there, and we would pay way more taxes. Because right now, like in Minnesota, I don't know, but let's say we have to pay 3% or something, I don't know. The minute we sold a physical good from like a lemonade stand, well, you have a retail store. You now pay 9%. So and definitely we know that for California and New York, and there's a bunch of states, and maybe Florida doesn't have that. I don't know. But when you see these vendors going around to all these states, and it's like, you must really want to sell some stuff, because the headache, because the minute you're selling retail, like you're supposed to get an actual business license for that county and all of that stuff. Like I'm like, man, with our accounts, I'm like, nope, that is not worth that to sell. Like, we'll sell 20 bottles of Easy Green and we'll pay this much in red tape fees. Nope. All right. Never thought of scam. I just thought, or just how can I get 30 if I like them without 15 boxes, 15 by 15 for shipping? Yeah. So the other thing we can do, and we're working on this too, is we're working on maybe down the future, you could choose what speed you want to get stuff. So if you only wanted your Easy Green and to ship slow, like you don't care if it ships fast, we can give you that option, and maybe it's free shipping at a lower rate or whatever, right? But we wouldn't allow you that option if you bought a plant. Plants have to ship fast. But we have to expand the warehouse to have that space to put maybe UPS or whatever we're going to do. And then we also have to build out expectations, like website stuff. And there's always going to be people, whenever we tried this in the past, because we've been doing this for years, right? We offer an option. Like the one that really backfired on us was like, oh, you can do a local pickup and you live in Florida. And then people would just be enraged like 4 days later, like, where's my crap? And be like, well, you picked local pickup and no one caught that you live in Florida, but you picked up local pickup. I did not. I just chose the cheapest shipping. I'm like, yeah, that would be free pickup because it's free, right? And so then we'd want to ship it, but they're like, they would just be so angry already. And so we have to figure out, how do we make it so that you almost have to do extra work of like, I want this to ship slower. I want to save the money. And I realize this will take 4 days longer to get to me. Like this Easy Green might take 8 days instead of 2 to get to you. You might not care. But there's a lot of people that want it tomorrow, want it tomorrow, want it tomorrow. So we're working on that. And then why did I go down that diatribe? Because it takes 8 days, it doesn't go in a plane. It goes on semi-trucks, which means this Easy Feeder, there's no limit to the amount of lithium-ion batteries in a truck, only in planes. So that's how we could then go, hey, if you will ship, or if you ship at this speed, we can ship more. That also gets developers back involved, because then it's like, well, you need like a toggle. Are you going to ship slow and no plants? You could buy more than 2. Oh, you have a plant? Don't even show them the fact they could ship slower, because that will be impossible. And then the next evolution, though, I know my brain would be like, well, technically, if you bought a lot of plants and a lot of feeders, we could ship the plants really quickly and then the feeders slowly. But and that's the thing. We'll go back to the 6-month thing. In the next 6 months, do I work on launching a light? Do I work on this? Do I work on this? Do I work on this? Or do we launch this new thing we just thought about here on the live stream, right? All right. I had a massive string algae bloom, and it got into my sponge filters. Do I need to replace them, or will the algae come out? I get the algae under control. You can usually get it under control, but let's say you couldn't. Let's say no matter what you do, you couldn't fix that. You could get a bucket of bleach, soak it in there. That would kill off the algae. Then put it into another bucket of water with a lot of dechlorinator. Let that soak for a little bit. Then put it into another bucket with just some fresh water. You'd kill off all the bacteria, but you'd likely kill off all the algae, and then you'd kind of have this new sponge filter recycle. So instead of buying one from us, you save all the money, and you just have to recycle the one you already own. Good for the environment, too. Well, better for the environment than rebuying another one. I just need to multiply myself. I try. That's why I hired Zenzo and Randy, and we hire lots of people to try and help. The problem is when you hire lots of people, you just end up doing more things. And yeah, which is good though. The thing is, I think sometimes we have to come back and look at where we are. 5 years ago, we were like so I think 5 years ago, legit, I think 5 years ago, we were a company that did $300,000 and we were only a retail store. And now we're a company that hopefully, if things go right, we'll do like 10 million plus. Now, our overhead is way insane. You know, like what we pay our employees in 2 weeks is more than I made in a year by far, like double, right? So like obviously the overhead and all these things have gone up quite a bit, but you know, I do think of like, I never thought I'd be where I am today. So where are we going to be in 5 years? 5 years, it might be, you know, we might have all these things worked out. 5 years, not that long a time, really. Like, it still seems like yesterday I'd be in the store eating top ramen. So, yeah. No more unboxing videos. I wouldn't say no more. I almost filmed one last week. I just haven't. With the house thing, every day has been like, oh, we got to go mow. There's going to be someone, you know, like it'd rain, it wouldn't, and then we'd have to go mow, and then someone's coming to look at it, and we got to go do this thing. And so we haven't, getting things to work out has been challenging. That's what I'll say. Like, honestly, we're still living out of boxes. Legit, we're living out of boxes. There's still a bunch of stuff we have to do. Like I still host like a campfire night. Employees come over. Not all employees, but employees and friends. So I try to maintain some kind of friendship level so that I'm not just this hermit like in the Matrix. Like, yes, must ship to Mexico. Must eye drops. Like must get this stuff into the UK. You know, so I'm trying to like, oh yeah, I emerge from the cave every once in a while. Like, legit, it's kind of depressing me actually. Lately, I come in, like I'll roll in today, and it'll be like 10:30. I'll start sitting down to meetings and doing all this stuff, and I'll come back out at like 8 or 9 p.m. Like, it's still daylight out. Like, this day is gone though. I didn't do, and I feel like I didn't do anything. I know that lots of stuff is moving, but it's, you know, like yesterday, you know, I like cleared some sticker bushes and that kind of stuff, and I felt like accomplished. Like, look at that, you could see what I did. Most stuff that we do every day, it's like, you know, like testing this product, right? If I test this today, I know I'll test it again, I'll test it again, I'll test it again, I test it again, and then we'll make a decision. Where, like, if I just go mow my lawn, you can be like, look at that, we're done, we mowed the lawn, great. It's, you know, there's so many things we do that it's like, I don't know, that's 20 meetings before we even get to do some of that. Yeah. I said, of course, with a hamster feeder and bacon on his desk. I wish. Sounds great. Will we be attending Reef Works in July? No, I won't this year. But I have some meetings with the organizers of that event. Yeah, we're gonna sit down and see what we can do to, like, because Reef Works is a saltwater event. We want to make it more of a freshwater event. I did do it a few years ago, but at this point, like, it takes a lot. We have to start planning. You know, we've got employees having babies. We've got people on vacation. We've got all this stuff going on. And when we commit, like, okay, it's on the calendar. Everything else in the business now skews to we're doing that event. And at the time when we could really look at doing Reef Works, it's like, well, we don't know our regulation's going to be. We didn't want to change everyone, like, you can't do any of this stuff. And then turns out, like, oh, can't do the event. And that's why we didn't do any of these aquashellas. There's a few different reasons, but one of the main ones was, yeah, you can keep scheduling them, but the ducks that I have to get in a row, like if I'm going to bring 1,000 t-shirts, I got to have those printed, I got to have them shipped, I got to do this, we got who's going, book hotels, book airfare, and then to be like, oh, that one's not happening, and then that one's not, like 3 of them in a row didn't happen. Like, that's a lot of stuff to just go, oops, that's not happening. And so now that the world's back on a more of a normal clip, now is why we're looking at events going, okay, we can do this one, I think. Let's start putting things in motion to make that happen. Did you get the hour in the fish room challenge today? No, but I'm going to. I've been slacking hard on that. Yeah, I got to, like, so here's how upside down my life is. I literally got 3 groups of fish from Robert at the store last night at 10:30 p.m. So around our little campfire thing, I invite Robert, you know, like, hey, come hang out if you want. And he's like, hey, I got those fish you wanted. So by the way, I was not lying. I just now got those orange laser Corydoras from G&H or Aquahuna.
I know them by their old name, by Aquahuna. I did not get them before you guys. You guys bought them out. So I just got them. I also got some platinum half-beaks and some autosinkless. But he shows up, and he didn't show up till late because, so he had to work at the store, and then he'd normally drive over. But instead, he had to like get his sister to watch his dog and his fish and all of that because him and his wife are going on vacation this week because they're having a baby. Which means, you know, like he ended up bringing the fish out, and he didn't have to. I was like, hey, if you want to come hang out, by all means do. And then he said like, oh yeah, I got those fish for you. I'm like, oh, well, if you come, bring them. If you don't worry about it. But yes, so he was at the campfire, and then like at 12:15 at night, I'm putting the fish away, I turn the lights back on. And so that's my life is like, oh yeah, did I get an hour in yesterday? No. I got about 15 minutes in feeding and putting fish away. So today, I want to go look at them. I want to feed them. I want to do all of that. I want to get auto feeders set up on it. There's actually 2 other species that don't have auto feeders yet. I want to get that done. So I'm really hoping to get that done. Do my half-beaks beat each other up? I don't know. They've only been here for, well, now it's about 12 hours. So, and the light was out for most of them. But I really hope to today. There's feeding I want to do, and there's auto feeders. I want to. Oh, dang, I should have asked Robert to bring me a timer, one of the Costa timers, so I could set up the lights there too. Maybe, the problem is I live like, well, not quite an hour away from the store. In the warehouse, I'm like 25, 30 minutes. I could go. But I'll be down there. I'm a real efficient guy, so I'm like, well, technically, be at the gym tomorrow. If I can remember, I should go from the gym to get that timer, then come home, take a shower, and then do it. And then probably something will come up, like, oh, I have to, you know, I was like, oh, look at this. I've got 3 blog articles from Irene I got to prove. Oh, this video. Oh, this. I really need to film videos. I really need to film some videos this week. All right. My endlers spawned about 6 weeks ago. Every single one is female. All I have is a black spot with no color. Freak accident? I don't know. Yeah, maybe. It could be, 6 weeks is probably, you can give them a couple more weeks and maybe they'll get some color. But I think you're lucky because I like having lots of the females, because the males, they're the ones that mostly prey on the fry more and they fight more and they tire the women out or the girls out. So I love the hour challenge. It's a lot harder to get done than one would think. Yeah, an hour is a lot of time. You get so much done in there, but carving out an hour out of at least my busy days is actually kind of hard to do. I have to make a dedicated effort to go, okay, from this time to this time, I'm going to try and do it. Let's see here. I missed the comment somewhere, but someone said like someone let it out of the bag that we're going to the UK. I've been saying that for a while, but it's still not 100%. We haven't bought tickets yet. And we're still, like, Zenzo and the event coordinator are still, yeah, here it is. Did you see that Fish Fever's video at Aquashell with Extreme? He let out the UK trip out of the bag. Yes, but we're still not 100% committed until we work everything out. Like, so the event, right? The thing that's missing there, it's not open to the public. It's only open to stores and that kind of stuff. So we're trying to go, what can we do for the actual fans that's going to be there? If we can make that happen, then, it's highly likely we're going to go. But we want to make sure that, so like part of the problem we have, in October, there's the ALA convention, there's this UK trip, there's Aquashell on Halloween, and there's the Catfish convention. That's 4 trips, right? And then we need to add in our event online that we do, so the meeting. That's 5 things in October. We basically can pick. So we obviously have to do the event, right? So I kind of need to pick 1, maybe 2, but that's really hard on me to do 2 in that month. So it's like, okay, we'll do the UK thing, because traveling outside the country is obviously more than like, oh yeah, we flew to Florida and then back. It's a lot more to commit to. So it's highly likely, but not 100% yet. There could still be like, ooh, maybe that's not going to work out, or there's no way to do an event. Yeah, but my fish store doesn't want to buy females. Well, it still makes you produce more, but I would wait on those endlers and to see if they don't start coloring up. I didn't know it wasn't open to the hobbyists, just stores in the UK. Yeah, it's a like a business to business event. Like I'm going there to give a talk on business, and not not like an adventure or something. And so we obviously, it doesn't make any sense for us to invest that time when there's all these hobbyist events, right? But Extreme is willing to pay for me to go over and give a business talk because that helps Extreme. More stores will bring Extreme in. But I only like to try to do things that are win-win. Like, hey, well, if we're going over there and I can do an event with fans and it's free to me, like, sure, I can tell people how much Extreme we sell, how we've done it, what's my marketing plan, that kind of stuff. Like, that makes sense to me. But, if I can't get that fan aspect of it, like, well, then what is it I get out of this yet? Like a trip to the UK, like, yeah, I do that though. Like when I have to meet the developers, I'll fly out to the UK, and that's its own thing, right? But like, then like if we can't do anything with the fans, it'd be like, well, how much are you paying me then? Because this is not good for our bottom line. Which I do think it's going to work out. So I don't want it to, but yes, tripping. This is why I always leave with the caveat of like it's highly likely and not set in stone because there's things that can happen, right? So yeah, Zenzo's working with them, going, hey, what can we do? And he's trying to see, like, can we use the event space a day before, or do we need to work with like a store? How can we make this make sense for all parties involved, where it's a win for everybody, the fans, us, the businesses? Yeah, that's the goal. My angelfish is bloating no matter how little I feed. Is there anything I can do to help this? Is it eating like just too much? So that's one thing. It could just be eating physically too much. The other part is you could try deworming it if you haven't dewormed it. That could be a thing, like if it's got a lot of parasites going on in there. But yeah, I'm not sure. Diagnosing without seeing pictures and being there is a bit harder for sure. When's the next members only video? I have no idea. I honestly don't know. Trying to think, like, the problem is Dean's not even in the state right now. Yeah, the problem is I don't even know what to film. And you might be like, just film your fish room. Like, yeah, I need to film the fish room for like the channel anyway. Memberships always come out, and this is gonna sound bad, but membership videos always come after I've gotten my work done. Right? I've always said we're not gonna do that gatekeeping of like, oh, well, the video on the main channel will be super crappy because I'm doing this great one because you got to pay me. So it has to be after that. And I'm, as we heard a little bit earlier, I'm behind on making sure we stay ahead. Now, again, people want to take vacations and all that kind of stuff's going on. So I need to get a bunch of videos done so that Jimmy and Lizzie and Irene and those people can get ahead on the schedule so that they can do all the stuff they want to do with their families and all that stuff over the summer. So right now, I'm behind the 8 ball. I'm like, I really got to, okay, this video, what else am I going to do? This one, okay, that one. Got to film them. We got to get B-roll. We got to do this. We got to do that. So, and then I can go, okay, well, here's that extra video. Where did you find the platinum half peaks? I've been looking for them for a few months. We bought them from basically the Wet Spot, which is a store in Oregon. We buy from the wholesale side, but they probably have them on the retail side too. Film you and Bob playing ping pong. Yeah, we definitely have talked about that, and the side that no one will want to hear is that when I'm playing ping pong and stuff, I'm trying to not work, and so like the last time I played ping pong before yesterday was when Zenzo was here. So it's been 2 weeks of all I did between Zenzo being here, which we worked, right? But we played ping pong every single day. Wake up till I go to bed was work until last night, which was ping pong. We start the day at 3 and it goes till midnight, 3 p.m. till midnight. Every other hour that I'm awake for the next 2 weeks will be me working 100%. So that's where it's like, but you could film when you don't work. It's like, well, I could film taking a shower too, but it's like there's got to be some line of like, nope. And we will. I'm sure we'll play some ping pong on camera and all of that, and maybe Jimmy will be here, and it'll be a work day as opposed to this is not a work day. But yeah, it's I am a workaholic, and it is a problem. So it's not a healthy thing to turn like the only few hobbies I have outside of fish. Let's not turn that into like, oh, we filmed that too. Teespring shirts and stuff shipped to the UK. Should ship worldwide, I believe. The entire world, I think. That's not, okay. So there is actually about 6 hours a week I don't work, and that is the 2 3-hour stints that I hit the gym. So Mondays and Wednesdays I work out for an hour and a half. I got to drive there. It's like half an hour to get there. So that's 2.5 hours, and then I got to shower. So outside of that, it's a lot of work. Because like last week, in the last 10 days, we received 2 40-foot cargo containers. One day it was raining. You know how fun it is to hand offload a cargo container in the rain? Not so fun. So yeah, it's been a lot. But all that just to make sure we don't run out of stuff. I've had terrible success with Corys. I've got 7.6 pH with lower GH and KH. I've got sand, great water quality and feeding. Is there something out there Stirby or Adolphi won't tolerate? Make sure they got fat bellies when you buy them. Very often, they'll be underfed at wholesalers in the store, and so they might have pinched-in bellies. Make sure that you're getting them with quite a bit of weight on them. That's what I would say. Where in the UK are you going? I have no idea. Here's what I do know. The UK is smaller than the state I live in, so I feel like wherever it is in the UK, you can drive there. I mean, it could be long. It could be like 6-7 hours at the latest, but I don't know. I mean, and that's the thing. Maybe we'll do the event, and then we'll pick a store, and it's kind of who wants to host. I reached out to MD Fish Tanks to be like, hey, can I see your tanks if I come over? And he said, yeah, let me know closer to the time. We'll see if we can, if you can check them out. Maybe we'll film. Who knows? Maybe he'll have like, you got to check this store out. I know there's some good stores over there. I don't know how long I'll be there for yet, right? If we try and do more than one event, short window. If I'm only doing that event in October, well, we could extend that out, pay for some extra hotel rooms, and maybe film some more stuff. I thought It's Hutch said, if you haven't met the like button, you should. Hit that like button. Why are the female scarlet bass so hard to find? The story that I hear is that when they were first being collected, they only wanted the bright, colorful males, and no one wanted the females. And so that got translated to the collectors, and so they almost never collect females. That's the story I heard. Whether that's true or not, I can't really say. If you do go to the UK, take some time to do some sightseeing. Yeah, I could. The problem is, I don't know if I was taking my wife, and so I don't really like to go sightseeing without my wife. Someone's got to watch the dogs, hold the fort down here. If she does go, I mean, I've seen Stonehenge before. I've been there. Yeah, it all depends. It's all that. There's so many facets again, right? Like we're doing an event. Who's involved? Who's got to do this? Who's got to do that? Who's got to do that? Who can go? Who can't go? Unboxing videos haven't seen in a while. It's true. They also do terrible though. So it's one of those like, I mean, I can go film a video that I know. It's kind of like you go to work doing a job that you know your superior is going to come in and be like, you're bad at that. Quit doing it. And it's like, I will do more unboxings because I do enjoy doing them. But YouTube 100% just punishes us of like, quit making these bad videos that don't get enough viewers. So maybe, and that could be a perfect member-only video or something. I just got to line up all the schedules. Does your Easy Green have CO2 in it? Try adding CO2 and without having to worry with a bottle? No. CO2 that you want to add to a planted tank would be in a gas form. So the liquid CO2 it's kind of just not a thing. I just know I get tore apart for statements like that. I mean, heck, an hour ago, I told people that ropefish is a reptile, so you can't trust anything I say. Yeah, maybe if anything, I'll tell Jimmy, even if I don't show up to film it, film one with Robert. So part of the problem is I have Jimmy on a thing where it's like, let's just do every video the best we possibly can. And unboxing videos are incredibly long to make. Like, because you got to get B-roll of every single fish. There's all these things you got to do. And so it probably costs me like $4,000 to make an unboxing video that no one watches. Like, oh, great. You know, whereas like something else, like the content, it doesn't have to be B-roll and everything. And so right now, like even on the video that came out on Sunday, he was over here a few times filming different things and really adding all those little elements. He's spending an insane amount of time on it, and that's what's getting us the views and people are liking it. And so I'd have to like pull some of that time off and do this unboxing video, which I know unboxings are kind of labor intensive, filming wise and editing wise. So we'll see. I'll talk to him about it, see what he thinks. The UK event is in Telford. Yeah, I don't know. May as well be Alabama to me. I don't know how to get there. Couldn't drive there. GPS, take me. You should learn French and come to Quebec. Nope. If the language I want to learn, I actually want to learn Mandarin. Because it'd be easier to talk with suppliers and I just, yeah, that's the language I would learn. If I can still learn a language. I'm pretty old. Bambalam. Yep. I'd wait for the $1 gallon sale and get a $20 long if you can. Just my opinion. I wonder if there's going to be any impact on that, because there's been shortages on like all kinds of stuff. I wonder like if we could see a longer stretch without $1 gallon sale. Like I think the tanks are made. Well, I know that tanks are made in the United States, but I don't know if the glass is. The glass might be coming over from, again, we're real good at assembling stuff in the United States, but that raw glass probably, well, I don't know, I can't say probably, might be coming from overseas. It might make sense to do that. So the other thing, I just remembered, like, Robert will be on vacation next week, so he can't do the video. I'd have to do it, which I might be able to pull off. Maybe. One day at a time. That's what I can do. I just go and watch the old unboxings? Yeah, that's true. There is that, too. Like, I honestly, I wish there was a stat on YouTube that would, like, show me how much of you guys actually watched. You know, of like the 200 and some odd live streams, how many of you guys actually watched? How many of the fish room videos? Because then I could actually see like, if you guys watch 10% of unboxings, whether I unboxed 2 years ago or I unboxed today, it's still just a random bag of fish, really. So you could just watch the other. We've done like 100 unboxings. There's a lot. Maybe not. Maybe like 70. But it's a lot. So there's a lot of unboxings out there. All right. How are we doing on memberships? I haven't looked at all today. Your channel. So we're winding down. Winding down. We've gotten, it's like 24 today. It's not so bad. It's not the number Zenzo's looking for. He's probably crying right now. They're not doing a $1 gallon sale anymore. Now it's 50% off. Sell the big tanks more. Okay. I wasn't aware of that. Am I sure there's no native fish in your pond? I mean, I'm not sure. I didn't drain it, but no one out of all the people looking at that pond has ever seen anything but the koi I put in there. So that's what we're thinking. How many care forum nerms are there? Or are here? I don't know how many are here. Like over 5,000 people on the forum. It ends up being the same price with the 50% off sales. I think, you know, I would not doubt for a second that 50% off instead of selling it at a price like changes tax liability or something. There's all these weird things with that kind of stuff. 99% of everything, I have a problem. Went back 2 years, maybe, of unboxings. We've done unboxings for a long time. I need to build a playlist of unboxings. I've been making some more playlists and working on some of that stuff when I'm waiting for a meeting. I'm like, well, I got 11 minutes till that meeting. I can work on this. So yeah, I'll see what I can do. I got to line, because part of it is, it's not like I can be like, yeah, Tuesday we'll do an unboxing. Like, no, I got to ask Robert, like, what day are those fish coming in? Is it a good one? Like, sometimes we get a shipment, it's like, well, it's autosynchronous, neon tetras, cardinal tetras, Minnows tetras, albino cories, cherry shrimp, and like nothing but like, oh, it's a list of this, and it's literally the most common things. And there's nothing different to show people. Like, oh, what about that shipment? Oh, that shipment's gonna be on this day. Like, oof, I gotta be at the gym or something. Like, okay, well, we could delay it. Maybe that'll work. Is that gonna be the slogan? The best $5 you'll ever spend in the hobby, the Aquarium Co-op Club. I had 8 tanks in a small apartment. Always more room for a 20 long. Whew. I've never done the apartment thing with a bunch of tanks. I mean, I would if it wouldn't slow me down if I could help it. New Sunday ritual is hard shell tacos. Nice. Nice. How's the new fish room coming? It's pretty good. Like, I haven't done anything too critical. Like, on Friday, we just had a meeting where we went over, like, so we got a big shipment, well, not a big shipment, but a shipment of our prototype lights, right? We got like 24, 36 of them, and we had to go through like, this is how, I don't know, like, not glamorous a job is. We had to go through 24 or 36 lights and look for blemishes on packaging and like, do we think the silicone there is done right? Do we think this is right? Is that a scratch? And document each thing and bring it up to the manufacturer and be like, hey, is this just because it's a prototype? Is this because this? Is this because this? Like, someone could get this product and think it's a used product, like, because it has that blemish right there. So it's not fun. We also, let me see, can I show these? I don't think well, I could. Yeah, I can show it. Well, I can show this part. These are 3D printed versions of some end caps we want to try out. So we have to take some lights apart and put them back together. And that is quite intensive. And what I mean by that is, like this one, these are 2 different models right here. Let's see. Make sure I got 2 different models here. Yeah. So this gives you a kind of a glimpse into product manufacturing. So we've got this light, right? And I want the feet, some feet that can be on a tank, or you could run it without feet, right? And so the standard piece right now, it won't let you remove the feet. So these were some 3D printed prototypes of the new ends we can put on the light. Now, you would think like, yeah, they just made 2. No, these are 2 different parts, because on the end of a light, on one side, the wire for power comes in. So I had to make 2 new parts. We have to take these off, the ones there, put them on ourselves. We have to clip the wire it back together, and test these and make it so that, this, well, here's a sample that's together, so that it can go through and make sure that that's going to be the right, like on Phoenix lights, how it's like too loosey-goosey and like, and then we don't want it to be too tight. We want the right amount. So like, yeah, you could make a dedicated decision and remove that piece, as opposed to it kind of slides around all willy-nilly. So, but yeah, that's the kind of fun stuff of like, hey, I was like a 3-hour meeting on documenting any flaws, looking at pieces, talking about stuff, and just to launch a product that we're probably still like 1.5 years away from. Who knows? But when it comes out, it'll be ready. It'll be good. All right. Well, thank you to the new members, everyone who joined today. If you missed the list of speakers coming up, check it out. I encourage you guys to become a member. I think, what'll probably happen is there'll be like people will talk about the first talk, like, oh, that was great, it was fun, blah, blah, blah. And then a bunch of people will come on board And because the value kind of only gets better. Like there's a speaker every month. Those are going to be high quality talks that, you know, won't. Well, you could be seen somewhere outside, but I think it's only going to get better. I think the more the word gets out that we're paying and that we have, you know, we'll help you with the equipment and quality and all of that, and you'll get a huge like viewer base, and it'll help promote whatever they're trying to do. I think we'll get better and better speakers, or maybe not better and better, but like other speakers we couldn't normally get that don't do the circus scene and all of that. You know, so like the hope would be maybe the aquatic vet, like, oh, you're in New York? Oh, okay. Well, then maybe like a bunch of people would start using them. Like maybe their practice would be like, wow, look at that, they're making money from it. So we might be able, we get to learn a lot, and maybe we get to help some people too. So, all right, I'm going to end the stream and go feed fish and set up feeders and do my hour challenge basically. So, oh, Dean's back. Just got back from brunch. Living the rough life, Dean. Living the rough life. Maybe you'll come back one day to Washington and we'll work in the fish room again. But yeah, I'll check my emails. And thanks for everyone who subscribed, or well, yeah, subscribed and liked and became a member. That's what I'm talking about. So until then, just spend your time buying cashews and other snacks, getting ready for the live streams. And because those weekends, you're going to get a dose of the speaker on a Saturday and then the aquarium co-op on a Sunday, like me doing it. Oh my gosh, these are so good. So good. All right, we'll see you guys later. I got nuts to eat. We're going to find the right bud.